Happy Thanksgiving to all and greetings to the citizens of Nindie Nation. I'm Jeff, and thanks for tuning in to our annual Black Friday video, where today we're powering through 86 eShop deals. With this many to cover, we're going to break them up into categories, and with over 1,800 titles currently on sale, unless otherwise stated, we're also following some ground rules. These games are all 1. At their lowest prices ever, 2. At least 50% off, 3. Have not been featured recently on Nindie Nation, and 4. Are on sale through at least December 1st. This video took forever to put together, and all of the deals are listed in the description for your convenience, so please, if this helps you at all, give this video a like, and if you want to see a rundown of every new indie released every single week for the Nintendo Switch, subscribe to Nindie Nation. With that out of the way, let's get right into our picks for 86 of the best deals currently available during Nintendo's Black Friday eShop sale. For those of you who want to dive right in and wreck shop or blow stuff up, here are 9 indies that are all about arcade-style action. Mechstermination Force by Bertel Horberg is a really cool 2D take on the take down a Colossus beast type enemy game, where half of the game is the puzzle of figuring out how to take out the enemy, and the other half is actually blowing up various pieces at will. There's lots of upgrades to track down all kinds of replayability, and the game itself looks and plays wonderfully. Mechstermination Force is currently 83% off for just $1.99. And Full Metal Furies was the next game to release right after Cellar Door Games released Rogue Legacy a few years back. It's more of a top-down isometric shooter with a focus on multiplayer combat. There's a lot of roguelike elements, and the game itself is extremely difficult, but very fun. While Full Metal Furies is a lot of fun, I would recommend it specifically for those of you who have someone else to play with, but it also features online play. At 70% off, Full Metal Furies is currently $5.99. And an oldie but a goodie, Broforce takes all kinds of tropes from 80s action movies and puts them together in a side-scrolling Contra-style blow-em-up game, I guess you could call it. You'll run, jump, shoot, and get your ass handed to you over and over again, and it's just as fun solo as it can be with up to 3 other friends. Broforce is currently 75% off, on sale for just $3.74. But if you want to go it alone and you love the slow-motion bullet time combat of games like Max Payne or movies like John Wick, you're gonna love My Friend Pedro, which is currently 60% off for $7.99. You're gonna play the game, spend a few hours with it, and more than likely be done after those few hours, but the time you spend with it is unlike anything else you can find on the Switch. It's a side-scrolling action game where at any given time you could be wielding dual Uzis, jump off a building, slide down a rope through a window, land on a skateboard, slide the skateboard down the hall shooting everybody in your path, kick the skateboard up into the air, shoot it at an enemy, and then slide under a table into a butcher shop where you murder everybody in sight. If that sounds like fun, pick up My Friend Pedro while it's 60% off for $7.99. And one of my favorite games to release last year was Panzer Paladin, which is currently half off for $9.99. If you like old-school retro-style action games, whether it's a Castlevania, Mega Man, or especially games like Metal Storm, or even a more modern example being something like Shovel Knight, you've got to try out Panzer Paladin. It takes ideas from across the 2D action genre and blends them together in a game that's, a little bit mech combat and a little bit rope swinging action, if that's a thing. Either way, it provided me about a dozen hours of gameplay with plenty more to uncover, and I loved every minute of it. Really, pick up Panzer Paladin while it's half off for $9.99 and find out why it was one of my top 3 favorite Nindies of 2020. And Unruly Heroes has been out for a while, but it's a bit different type of game. If you're familiar with games like Rayman, those beautiful side-scrolling multiplayer platformers, it's kinda like that, but it mixes in some simple combat that is all about combos and juggling characters and doing it in style. It's really fun, it includes puzzles to solve, all kinds of fast platforming action, and tons of fun combat. Check it out while Unruly Heroes is also half off for $9.99. And one of my favorite twin-stick shooters on the Switch isn't a roguelike, it doesn't do all kinds of crazy RPG mechanics, no. Assault Android Cactus Plus is just tried and true, creme de la creme twin-stick shooting action, and it is a blast every step of the way. Check it out while it's currently 70% off for just $5.99, and know that you're getting one of the best shooters on the Switch at its best price yet. But if you do want something with the RPG mechanics and roguelike elements and all that kind of stuff, check out Void Bastard's DeLUX bundle, which includes all of the previously released DLC, which is good because if you like this game, there's a ton of extra content there. Void Bastards is a first-person shooter that is cel-shaded, so it looks a lot like a Borderlands type of game. Once you get into the game, though, you'll realize that it is structured like a roguelike. You're going to go as far as you can into each room, trying to find a way to escape the prison system that you're trapped in. You'll collect items, get gas, find new artifacts to uncover and turn into new weapons and abilities, and when you die, you'll upgrade your character and try it all again. Void Bastards DeLUX bundle is currently 50% off for $16.49. And finally, for this action shooter category, Ion Fury is a love letter to the early 90s first-person shooters on PC. And it actually is developed by a lot of the people that made the original Duke Nukem 3D. Really, that's all I need to tell you about it. If you were a fan of Doom, Wolfenstein, or especially games like Duke Nukem 3D, Daikatana, Shadow Warrior, those kind of games, you're gonna love Ion Fury. And right now, it's easier than ever to jump in while it's 50% off for $12.49. Next up, we've got a category that's for those of you who might want a bit more story or purpose to the action you're participating in. So here are 8 indies that have more context or story but are action-packed all the same. These are the action-adventure titles. Trigger Witch is one of my favorite games of 2021 and is a top-down shooter that has a lot of heart. As you can see, it looks gorgeous, it has an incredible story that is way better than it has any purpose being, and it's currently 30% off for $10.49. Pick this one up while you can, it's pretty new and very cheap, well worth the price. Find out why this game is going to be on a lot of indie fans' top games of the year. And one of the most beloved indies on the Switch is Shantae Half Genie Hero, and the Ultimate Edition contains 4 or 3 or 5, a bunch of DLC, I promise, it's a lot. Shantae Half Genie Hero is one of the best side-scrolling action platformers you can find. It's got some RPG mechanics where you'll revisit levels after you find new abilities, but for the most part, it's just a gorgeous retro-style romp that looks like a Saturday morning cartoon. And the Ultimate Edition includes, like I said, a bunch of DLC packs that give you brand new campaigns that really could stretch the game out to 3 or more entirely new playthroughs. It's a lot of content for a great deal because Shantae Half Genie Hero Ultimate Edition is currently 50% off for $14.99. But if you want something cheaper and you want something a bit more simple but not any less good, Blossom Tales: The Sleeping King is a love letter to classic top-down Zelda games. That's really all you need to know about it. Well, of course, for the price. Blossom Tales: The Sleeping King, which is a perfect game for those of you who love classic Zelda, is currently 75% off for $3.74. The Messenger was one of the first really big indie hits for the Switch when it released back in 2018, and for good reason. The game starts out looking like an 8-bit Ninja Gaiden clone, but before long it turns into a 16-bit Metroidvania. You'll explore big, open areas, branching labyrinthine caverns, and you'll engage in some of the most challenging action sequences and some of the most rewarding platforming segments I've ever seen in a game. Plus, the soundtrack is incredible. Pick up The Messenger for 60% off while it's $7.99, but while you're out there on the eShop, make sure to also pick up the Picnic Panic DLC for free. It adds like 30% more content to the game, and it's just as good as the core game itself. Another oldie but goodie is Bastion, which released for the Xbox 360 way back during, I think, the first Xbox Live Summer of Arcade. Bastion is developed by Supergiant Games, which means it takes a combination of action RPG mechanics and incredible narrative and blends them together like nobody else can. If you haven't played Bastion, please, while it's 80% off for $2.99, pick it up. Don't let this one slip by you again. It's amazing. And then maybe a hidden gem, a game that I played earlier this year that released in 2020. Grim Valor is one of the closest examples I've seen to something like Castlevania Symphony of the Night, in both the way it looks and the way it plays. Now, don't take that to mean that Grim Valor is a timeless masterpiece, because it's not. It's a little bit more budget, a little more indie, if you will, but still great nonetheless. Plus, there's a demo if you want to try it out first. If you do play the demo and you like the way it fuses that medieval fantasy side-scrolling hack-and-slash combat with RPG systems and a bit of roguelike elements, pick up Grim Valor while it's 50% off for $6.49, and let me know what you think. A game that I played towards the end of last year and kinda took a chance on and was really glad I did was Foregone, which is currently 70% off for $5.99. It's a really neat sci-fi story that is also very Metroidvania-inspired, but it plays a bit more like Dead Cells. It's very fast, it's very acrobatic, and it's very smooth to play. It takes a bit to get used to the controls and the combat, but once you do, you're gonna love it. Plus, the story is very intriguing throughout, and it's got a pretty good payoff at the end. Check out Foregone while it's 70% off for $5.99. And finally for this category, the creme de la creme when it comes to side-scrolling retro action platformers. That's right, I'm talking about the Shovel Knight Treasure Trove, which is currently $21.99, which is 45% off. If you haven't played Shovel Knight yet, get your life together and play Shovel Knight. Now, with that said, if you want to try Shovel Knight, but you don't want to bite off on the whole package first, you can try the Shovel Knight Shovel of Hope game, which is just the Shovel Knight adventure, or you can do what I did and pick up Spectre of Torment, which is a side story, but still an entire game on its own, and give that a shot first to see how you like the format. Shovel Knight the Shovel of Hope is 40% off for $8.99, Spectre of Torment is 40% off for $5.99, and the Shovel Knight Treasure Trove is 45% off for $21.99 and includes an entire 5 games, including the best Smash Bros. Clone that isn't Smash Bros. Now, for those of you who are just looking for some good old pick-up-and-play action, score chasing, or something infinitely replayable, the following 8 indies will give you that arcade-style action in spades, with none of the other filler to get in the way. Twin Breaker, a Sacred Simples adventure, is 60% off for $3.99 and is created by Colin Moriarty of Last Stand Media, so there's a lot of narrative around that world, but it's not necessary to enjoy the game. The game, by the way, is basically Breakout on crack. You got paddles, you move them side to side, you hit the balls, and then things get really crazy later on. It's really fun, and for anybody who likes Breakout, give it a shot. It's 60% off for $3.99. And one of my favorite twin-stick shooters on the Switch is one of those 1-bit black and white style games, if you know what I'm talking about. Well, I mean, you're looking at the screen right now, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. Null Drifter is 60% off for $1.99 and gives you all kinds of fast-paced shooter action, while also giving you a really fun hook where it has a bit of a roguelike progression. You know, you can beat the game the first time if you're really good, but more than likely you're gonna fail a couple of times and use the coins you've gathered to upgrade your ship. Either way, the whole game takes maybe 30 minutes to beat in a whole run, but there's a lot of replayability, and it's got a really cool, I don't know, like a virus infiltrating a computer network kind of hook to it that's pretty neat to see play out. Null Drifter is 60% off for $1.99 and is worth every single penny. But what if you like pinball? Well, we've got 2 games for you. Demon's Tilt is, in my opinion, the best pinball game on the Switch. Now, that may be contested by some of you. Let me know if you want to fight about it down in the comments. I really don't care. Demon's Tilt comes to us by teams responsible for the very similar games over on the TurboGrafx 16, and you can really tell as soon as you boot it up. If you love pinball and you want to see a really robust single-table game that I promise it expands, it gets way, way bigger. It's not just one table, but it kind of is. Anyways, pick up Demon's Tilt while it's 50% off for $9.99, and let me know what you think. If you want something simpler though, just tried and true pinball action, pick up Pinball FX3, the core collection, which includes a few of their fan-selected favorite pinball tables. You can get the whole core collection bundle for $3.99 while it's 60% off. And then if you're a fan of arcade games like Defender, try Aqua Kitty UDX. Yes, it has a ridiculous name and the premise is about cats who mine underwater to get milk, but that aside, the gameplay itself is tried and true Defender. You go left and right, you pick up little beans that are down on the ground, you try to stop them from getting abducted, I guess, and the gameplay is really, really solid. Aqua Kitty UDX is currently 60% off for $3.59, and I think it's got a demo out there as well. One of the more recent games that came to the Switch that felt like it took forever was Ollie Ollie, and the wait was worth it because not only did we get the original game, but we got its sequel and a kind of repackaging of the whole series. Ollie Ollie Switch Stance is a 2D skateboarding game that is all about stringing together as many tricks and combos as you can while landing them perfectly and of course not falling on your ass. It's a great pick up and play game that is a good fit for just about any Switch, and it's currently 80% off for $2.99. That is one of the best deals for Black Friday. Don't miss it. And for those of you who loved going into the arcade in the 90s and sitting down in those big flight simulators and flying around dogfighting in those big chonky polygon jets, well, Sky Rogue is the game for you. It really looks like something Sega would have made back in the heyday of Virtua Racing and Virtua Fighter, but it's modernized and has a lot of roguelike mechanics given its name, Sky Rogue. You fly around in a big open environment and you can tackle a bunch of different objectives at any given time, and as soon as you feel like you're starting to teeter on the edge of, blowing up, you head back to base. So there's a really cool risk versus reward system. You can stay out in the open fighting and picking up objectives as long as you want, or you can bank your earnings and go back to base, upgrade, and go back out again. There's a ton of jets, there's a ton of environments, and there's an amazing soundtrack that you're probably hearing right now. Sky Rogue is currently half off for $9.99. Also half off for $9.99 is Hunt Down, a game that I wasn't sure exactly where to put it because it plays a lot like a 16-bit side-scrolling shooter, but I really think it plays a lot more like a side-scrolling shooter in the arcade from the same era. Either way, it's drenched in gritty cyberpunk aesthetics and features 3 different characters that play entirely differently. It's a very slow, methodical platforming shooter, but it is awesome. And it also happens to be one of the highest rated games in this genre on the Switch. But not everybody likes shooting, and not everybody likes racing, and not everybody likes making things go boom. Frankly, you may not want to ransack the place like a bull in a china shop. And if that sounds like you, we've got 8 indies loaded with heartfelt stories, choices to make, romances to participate in, or just an overall focus on narrative. Now, these games are not necessarily my bag, so I'm gonna do my best to sum up the stories, but, in advance, go look them up for yourself if it sounds like something you want. Because this is the only category in today's video that I have not played every single one of. Sorry about that. Our World Has Ended is a fairly recent entry in the visual novel style adventure game and features a bunch of kids in a post-apocalyptic Japan with gameplay that's a bit more like a tabletop game. It got pretty decent reviews. I think it was a bit underwhelming for some, but take one look at the visuals and you'll probably get a sense of if this one's for you. Our World Has Ended is currently 85% off for $7.49. One of my favorite games in this genre is What Remains of Edith Finch, and it is one that I have played and has stuck with me ever since. You live out a bunch of different spooky vignettes to learn how everyone in this spooky house has come to meet their doom. It's really interesting, really intriguing, and is a great mystery. What Remains of Edith Finch is currently 70% off for $6 and is worth every penny. And then another game in this genre that I have played and I really liked, despite it being, I guess, an interactive B-movie. Telling Lies is currently 60% off for $7.99 and is created by Sam Barlow, the creator of Her Story. It focuses on found footage on a stolen NSA laptop where you watch private conversations play out and discover who's lying about the shocking incident that ties these 4 people together. Plus, it's got that one chick from Westworld, and she was awesome. Star-Crossed is one that I was definitely somewhat interested in, but definitely didn't play, and, The best way I can explain Star-Crossed is that it's like Asteroids plus sci-fi drama, but it is horny and fabulous. If that sounds like it's up your alley, Star-Crossed is 70% off for just $2.99. Another game that's half off for $2.99 is Florence. It's about a 45-minute to an hour-long story about an extremely down-to-earth, realistic relationship, and it gets very emotional, but does a great job of pulling you into the narrative with lots of cool little mini-games to tinker with. Kinda like a WarioWare, but very chill. And a story that found a great audience within the Nindie Nation community is The Road to Guangdong, which is $4.99 and 80% discount. It's a story set in the 1990s China about a person named Sunny who must go on a zen-like road trip to save her family's restaurant after the passing of a family member. It's a really nice, touching story that has a couple of turns, but nothing too shocking, and at 80% off, $4.99 is well worth the price to experience this heartfelt story. The Last Campfire is the next game by Hello Games, who is most known for No Man's Sky, and should be immediately familiar as it looks very inspired by Zelda, but with an otherworldly appearance and a much heavier focus on narrative. The Last Campfire is 60% off for $5.99. And finally, for this category, Murder by Numbers is going to make a lot of people happy if you've never played it and you love the Phoenix Wright series. This is a murder mystery full of characters fans of that series are bound to love and features music by the composer of the Phoenix Wright games as well. Murder by Numbers is half off for $7.49. And the next list we're going to cover combines a lot of what we just discussed, as these games do have a fair share of action and they do indeed have a story, but they're a little less focused on razor-sharp reflexes and more about the platforming and how you get from point A to B. These are the 9 indies that I've labeled as the adventure/story-focused/puzzle platformers. The Missing, J.J. McField and the Island of Memories is a extremely gory side-scrolling platformer where part of your puzzle solving involves figuring out ways you can kill yourself because the main character cannot die. There are times where you have to do things like cut your arm off so that you can squeeze through a passage and stuff like that. It's real messed up, but it's got a really cool story and it's a really fun game that is gorgeous to look at, aside from all of the gore. If you can put up with the gore, definitely check the game out while it's 75% off for $7.50. And then a duo of games I think almost everybody is familiar with, but if you are and you haven't played them, you need to play Inside and Limbo. And if you're just going to pick one, I would say Inside. Both of these games are made by the same team. Both of these games are only $1.99, which is 90% off for Inside and 80% off for Limbo. And both of these are award-winning, like Game of the Year award-winning titles that are side-scrolling platformers with some pretty dark environments and concepts. In Limbo, you are a little boy, you move from left to right, and you find out how many gruesome ways he can die in one hit. And Inside is very similar, but it's a bit more of a, how do I say without spoiling it? Yeah, I mean, you would explain both games the same way. I would say that each one's about 5 hours long, and they are absolutely worth playing for pretty much anyone. Pick up Inside and or Limbo. Really, you should have them both, especially while they're $2 each. And then a game that we played on our Nindies at Night stream last year when it released is Narita Boy, which is $12.49 or 50% off. Now, if you like what you see here, that's the majority of the game. It's a very cyberpunk 80s neon-infused story that is really out there. The game wants to confuse you and does a great job of it, but outside of the story, the gameplay is very unique. It's time-based action with lots of exploration, and if you can give yourself a good amount of patience, the payoff is worth it. Honestly, for me, I couldn't get into it, but I know a lot of people love Naruto Boy, so if this looks like it's up your alley, check it out while it's 50% off for $12.49. And then the oldest game in this genre that also happens to be one of the newest ones is Oddworld New and Tasty, which is a remake of Oddworld Abe's Odyssey, which released back in the late 90s on the PlayStation 1. This is one of the best quality / bang for your buck deals that you can get right now, as it's 67% off for $9.99 and is one of the best side-scrolling puzzle platformers you can find. If you're a fan of things like the old Prince of Persia games where it's a very cinematic flair and you're moving through worlds solving puzzles on a grand scheme while also solving little micro challenges room by room, you're gonna love Oddworld, and the humor that it brings to the table is fantastic. Check out Oddworld New and Tasty while it's $9.99, 67% discount. And then a game that I did not play because everybody who played it cried and then told me how wonderful the game is Spiritfarer, a story about a person that is helping animals get to the afterlife. And that sounds heart-wrenching. I don't know if I could do it, guys. Spiritfarer is currently 50% off for $14.99 and is one of the highest-rated games of 2020. So if you're in the mood for that heart-warming yet tear-jerking, that tug on your heartstrings kind of game, give it a shot. I hear it's very relaxing, very zen, and very touching. The complete opposite end of that spectrum is Afterparty, made by the team who created Oxenfree just a few years prior. Afterparty is all about getting sucked into the underworld and making a bet with your best friend that you guys can drink the devil under the table. It is hilarious and contains the same incredible writing found in Oxenfree, but this time with a much funnier slant, and it looks gorgeous. Check out Afterparty while it's 60% off for $7.99. And then a game that we've recently been playing during the Nindie Backlog Club, which is where we take a look at games in our community that we think everybody should give a shot. Iconoclasts is currently 70% off for $6 and is an incredible Metroidvania puzzle platformer. It's got some of the most beautiful pixel art I think I've seen in an indie, especially in recent memory, and won tons of awards for its storytelling, its puzzle solving, and its incredible soundtrack. Pick up Iconoclasts if you've never played it before and you're into these kind of games, and you will not be disappointed. Finally, speaking of beautiful games, one of the prettiest games that we'll talk about in this video is Monster Boy and the Cursed Kingdom, which is one of the more expensive indies available, but is currently 75% off for $9.99. After they remade Wonder Boy 3, an original Sega Master System game, the developer went on to create their own take on this type of puzzle platforming formula, and they knocked it out of the park. Unfortunately, this game, I think it released in 2018, came out right at the end of the year, so it missed a lot of Game of the Year lists, but if you go back and talk to people that played it, I think most people would tell you it's among their favorite games of that year. Check it out because it's never been this cheap, and for $10, you're gonna get a solid 20 hours of gameplay out of Monster Boy and the Cursed Kingdom. Phew! How about a little breather? Let's call it halftime. We're about halfway through all of today's games. How you feeling? If you're gonna pick up any of these games, let me know down in the comments. Be sure to like the video, subscribe if you want more indie gaming goodness, and thank you to Deku Deals for providing all of these deals. If you own any current video game console, you need to add Deku Deals to your bookmarks and visit it on the regular. Thank you very much to Deku Deals for providing the information for today's videos. Hey, maybe you're a thinker, maybe you're all about solving challenging conundrums and you don't need to shoot guns or romance hotties or experience a gripping story. If so, here's 8 games that fall into the category of puzzles or racing. Why did I combine these? Well, because in my house, I'm a dad and what I say goes. So, yeah, we'll just go with that. Pixel Junk Monsters 2 Deluxe Edition is one of my favorite games ever. It is an amazing tower defense game. How's that for a genre we don't see much anymore? If you've never played it, it's currently 85% off for $3.29. And if I had to pick 5 games to get from today's list, Pixel Junk Monsters 2 is definitely on that list. Superliminal is a really cool first-person puzzle game. Think something like Portal, but it's all about MC Escher-style puzzle solving. You walk into a room, you see a bunch of shapes and environments in front of you, and then you figure out how you can manipulate the room and the viewpoint to solve the puzzle or get all the pieces to fit together. It is really, really trippy. Check out Superliminal while it's 40% off for $11.99. And World of Goo is one of the earliest indie game successes of modern gaming. I think it released back in 2008 for the Wii originally. It's basically a game about physics and building bridges, and the Switch might be the best place to play it because you can play it with traditional controls, the touchscreen, or the Wii Remote pointer control type of mechanic, which was how it was originally built. World of Goo is currently 68% off for $5.09 and is a great game for gamers of any age. Helheim Hassel is the next game from the Manuel Samuel developer and is a puzzle platform adventure with a hilarious but morbid premise about losing body parts and stuff. Why do we have two games with that premise? Anyways, Helheim Hassel is very funny. It's not nearly as dark as The Missing was that we talked about earlier. Check out Helheim Hassel while it is currently 66% off for $6.79. And my favorite falling block puzzle game that isn't Tetris is Lumines Remastered, which got its release on the Switch a couple of years ago, and it kind of came and went without much notoriety, and that's a shame. If you love music, and you love games, and you love Tetris, and you want to see all those things mixed together, check out Lumines Remastered while it's half off for $7.49. And Fez is another one of those beloved, timeless indies that really got the indie bandwagon moving. Now, this game does break the rule, it's only 25% off, but I wanted to make sure that everybody had a chance to get Fez, because it's only been out on the Switch for, I think, about a year now, and it rarely ever goes on sale. So, if you've never tried this mind-bending 3D, 2D puzzle game, check it out while it's 25% off for $11.24. And then we've got a couple of racing games for you. Both of them are going to call back to a retro influence. Road Redemption is the game for anybody who loved Road Rash back in the day. Now, that gameplay may not hold up today as much as you think it did, but Road Redemption gives you exactly that gameplay with a slightly more modern touch, but not much. Check out Road Redemption while it's half off for $9.99. And, hit some people with some chains while you're on the back of a motorcycle, because that's fun. But don't do it in real life, because that's bad. My favorite racing game for the Switch, though, is Horizon Chase Turbo. It's a wonderful $5 game that's currently 75% off and looks just like 90s arcade racers. Plus, it's got tons of extra downloadable content that some is premium or you gotta pay for, but it also includes a rookie mode that is free DLC that is the best way to get a little kid into racing games. It's really hard to lose in that mode. Like I said, Horizon Chase Turbo is my favorite racing game on the Switch, and it is currently only $4.99. Check it out. Really, it's really good. Now that we got that hodgepodge of a category out of the way, let's take a look at a category that's a bit easier to understand, though the terminology maybe needs to be revisited. Role-playing games. That term, I don't know about you, but it isn't nearly as literal as it used to be. These games, yes, they're about playing a role, but I'm using the more practical definition here, as these 8 Nindies have thought-provoking combat interweaved with a narrative and are all about leveling up, progressing abilities, and, all that RPG stuff. The Banner Saga is a very early RPG on the Switch and is a turn-based strategy or tactical combat game where you move characters around on a grid and it's got permadeath like Fire Emblem. It features a Viking-themed story that is one of the best stories you're gonna find in games. I loved the narrative here. And it spans across 3 different entries. The first one, the Banner Saga, is 80% off for $4.99, and if you love it, there's 2 more waiting for you. Next up is Bug Fables, the Everlasting Sapling. Hey, look at me. I mean, you can't see me, but look at me. Have you ever complained about Paper Mario on the internet? I'm pointing at you. I don't know why I'm pointing at you when I'm recording audio, but if you have ever complained about Paper Mario on the internet, you need to buy Bug Fables while it's 40% off for $14.99. I know it's not 50% off, and that was a rule I set, but hey, this is the best deal we've seen on Bug Fables, and this game is the next Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door that the entire internet supposedly is begging for. This is that game. It's exactly what you want. It's that turn-based combat, paper-style aesthetic. The battle system has timing stuff in it. You get little partners that you can bring with you along your quest, and it's massive. You gotta get Bug Fables. It's also one of the highest-rated games on the Switch, so get Bug Fables and stop pestering Nintendo to do what we all know they're not gonna do. Bug Fables: The Everlasting Sapling is 40% off for $14.99. And then a game that falls into the category of RPGs that I'm not a huge fan of, games like Earthbound or Saturday Morning RPG. I know, fine. Yell at me in the comments for not liking Earthbound. Fine, whatever. I'm over it. Anyways, Y2K, a postmodern RPG, is 60% off for $7.99, and it's exactly that narrative-focused, kind of modern aesthetic RPG that doesn't have the deepest mechanics, as it's more focused on pushing you through the story itself. Those that I've talked to have really enjoyed the game. I personally have not tried it, but for 60% off, $7.99 isn't asking a lot when you're talking about a huge RPG. Next up from the hey, if you liked this, buy this category is Felseal: Arbiter's Mark. And this game is for all of you who love Final Fantasy Tactics. That's right, it's a strategy tactics-based RPG. It's got turn-based combat. It even looks like Final Fantasy Tactics. If that's up your alley, check it out while it's 66% off for $10.19. And then something that's very much not in line with all of the other games in this category, but I needed a place to put it, and that's Forager, which is one of those RPG, simulation, farming, crafting games. And the reason I put it in here is because I never liked any of these games, but Forager won me over. It really did. It's simple, it's cute, it's quirky, it's fun, and it has an openness to it that lets you do whatever you want. If you want to focus on upgrading character abilities and focus on combat, you can do that. If you want to focus on building out an empire and expanding your territory, you can do that. And if you want to just, kind of dick around, you can do that as well. Plus, it's got animated poop. I mean, for that reason alone, 50% off for $9.99, check out Forager and tell them Nindie Nation sent ya or something. Oh, and another title from Supergiant Games is the incredible Transistor, a game that is wildly underappreciated across the video game landscape. I'm here to tell you that Transistor is one of the best RPGs that you can find. It's got incredible combat, tons of customization. It's got about an 8 to 10 hour campaign if I remember correctly, might be a little shorter than that. And it is just an incredible drama told in a post-apocalyptic cyberpunk style world that is just, it's so good I bought a poster for that game. And I only have like 4 posters of video games. So I love Transistor. And I think you'll love Transistor. I mean, if you like any Supergiant game, Bastion, Hades, Pyre, any of those, you gotta play Transistor. So, do it while it's 80% off for $3.99. Can you tell we're getting kind of far into this video? I'm getting antsy sitting here reading off all of these different games, trying to remember each one off the top of my head. Anyways, 2 more. Into the Breach is an award-winning, also Game of the Year contender from when it released a couple of years ago, and is another turn grid-based strategy RPG. This one, though, is a lot more focused on roguelike elements, where the things that you lose in your game can be lost for the duration of your game, so every single move matters. It's got a really cool, mech, sci-fi, military vibe to it, and incredible pixel art. Into the Breach is one of those games that I picked up on a whim when it shadow dropped during the 2018 Game Awards, I think, and I was just immediately hooked. If you're looking at the game and you like what you see, but you're worried about the roguelike elements of it, don't worry, because there's a ton of accessibility options and you can actually turn most of that stuff off. In my opinion, if you're only going to pick up 1 or 2 games from this list, make it Transistor and Into the Breach, especially while Into the Breach is half off for $7.49. And the last title in our RPG category is Slay the Spire, the beloved roguelike deck-building card battler that, everybody seems to like. It's one of those that I have yet to play, and I know it's on Game Pass right now, so I'm gonna try it on the Xbox someday, I guess. I personally haven't gotten around to Slay the Spire, and one of the biggest reasons is because anytime someone tells me they're gonna give it a shot, they end up playing it for like the next 6 months, and I need to cover more games more frequently than that, so I can't lose myself to Slay the Spire. But if you want to lose yourself to Slay the Spire, you can while it's at its lowest price ever, 60% off for $9.99. And hey, we're getting pretty close to wrapping up this video, and next up could be a very timely category, because as we head into the holidays, I'm always getting inundated with requests for great multiplayer or party games. Here are 7 of my favorites that are currently on sale. Quiplash and Fibbage XL are both $4.99, 50% off each, and are the most popular games that are a part of the Jackbox Party Pack series of games. If you've ever looked at those games and you've been like, where do I start? It's with these games. So they're party games that play much more like a board game, but the cool part is that they're very accessible because every player in the room uses their phone to interact with the game. And basically each one is a different take on very quickly being able to make other people in the room laugh. In Quiplash, you have to make jokes about the things you see on screen, very much all about puns. And Fibbage, you have to answer questions or describe things you see on screen and try to come up with the best lie of everybody in the room. Both of these games are good for really any number of players and are an awesome way to just fire up a game while you've got a few people over at your house, and would be great for friends or family when they're visiting over the holiday season. Check them out, and if you want more, check out the Jackbox Party Packs. One of the most beloved indie games, especially when it comes to multiplayer games, is Overcooked, and the All-You-Can-Eat DeLUX Edition is currently 40% off for $23.99. This is the game that ends marriages, breaks friendships, and makes everybody have a great time. I don't really know how all of those things can coexist, but Overcooked makes that happen. Everybody from 1 to 4 players can work together to coordinate working in the weirdest environments possible to make food, and have to constantly communicate in order to cook under some of the weirdest, most dangerous circumstances ever. If you've never played Overcooked, you don't have to start with the all-you-can-eat bundle, but if you've got someone that you know is going to sit down and play through the game with you, and it's pretty accessible for any type of gamer, this might be the best way to dive in, because you're going to get all the content in one fell swoop. Another game that I played earlier this year and is really fun, but only if you have someone else to play it with, is Can't Drive This. Now, you might be looking at the screen and saying, well, that's just a monster truck game, but hear me out. Can't Drive This is a Hot Wheels-style monster truck game, all about crazy physics and jumps and tricks and stuff like that. But the hook is that one person drives the monster truck while the other person makes the level in real time. And it's really hard to describe further than that, so watch a couple of videos if you're on the fence, but if that sounds like it would be a good fit for you and someone else in your household, check it out while it's 30% off for $13.99. And, Catan. You know, it's Settlers of Catan, but on your Switch. If you like Catan, then you're gonna like Catan. It's half off for $9.99. Next! Oh boy. We round this list out with 2 of my favorite games to break out when other people are over. First up is Castle Crashers Remastered, which is 40% off for $8.99. Another one of those indie gems from the Xbox Live Summer of Arcade. Castle Crashers Remastered is exactly that. It's remastered, it's in HD now, and is one of the best modern brawlers you can find. It's got great hack and slash gameplay, cool RPG mechanics, and a bunch of different characters, so there's a ton of innate replayability. My only caveat is that I will warn, while it looks colorful and cute, there is a lot of gross poop humor and lots of gore, so might not be the best fit for everybody's kids, but older kids should be able to handle it just fine, and there's nothing funnier than having to make your way through a level being chased by a gigantic fur beast while you're being propelled by a deer with explosive diarrhea. So there's that. It's 40% off for $9. Pick up Castle Crashers Remastered and let me know what you think. And last on this list is Nidhogg 2, a wonderful, gross, competitive game for 2 players. If you've got a bunch of gamer friends that will be over at some point during the holidays, and you're all gonna sit around and trade the controller off like it was an old game of Street Fighter 2, Nidhogg 2 is a great fit for that type of game night. It's not necessarily a 2D fighter, and that's what makes it more accessible. Basically, the goal is you have to get past your opponent to the other edge of the screen, and that's pretty much it. You have a weapon, you can throw your weapon, and then there's all kinds of obstacles. The original is very much 1-bit pixel art, and the sequel is this really gross pixel art that's much more pronounced? Either way, both games are great, and I would recommend picking up the sequel while it's 55% off for $5.24. And then we've got my second favorite category of this video, the titles that I lovingly refer to as, quote, weird indie things. That's right, these 8 releases are games that, frankly, don't fall into any other category. Bless you, indies. Bless you. Paco Caravan is a wonderful, simple little top-down driving game where you just kind of drive around an area and collect coins, and it's all about drifting and sliding around the screen, and I don't know, it's really hard to explain, but I had so much fun with it. Of all the games on this list that I think you should just throw a couple of bucks at and take a chance on, Paco Caravan tops the list, and it's currently 70% off for $2.39. And then we've got Art School. Hey, take a look at this. Do you see this? Do you see what's happening on screen right now? This is Art School. I don't really know what the this game is. I really don't, and I played it for like 2 hours, and I still can't tell you what the this game is. But hey, if you want to give it a shot, people really like it. I mean, really like it. I don't know why people like this game, but people really like Art School. It's 85% off for $1.99 and is the epitome of weird indie things. Something that's a little easier to grasp is Lo-Fi Ping Pong, which is 30% off for $3.49, and it's rhythm-based ping pong. Really, you just play games of ping pong and listen to really chill lo-fi beats, and you gotta play the game to the rhythm of the song. And then, things start getting a little bit more complex as you have to spin the ball or hit left, right, center, up, down, things like that. But it starts very simply and then gradually gets more complex, so it's easy to work your way into, and the music is phenomenal. But it's one of the videos that I got the most copyright strikes for, so we're not gonna play it here. Sorry about that. Thumper is another one of those oldie but goodies that has been on just about any other platform, and it is best described as Amplitude but horror. And if you don't know what that is, Amplitude is like Guitar Hero or Rock Band, where you've got the track of notes coming at the screen and it's all about pushing the right buttons at the right time to build out the song. But this one plays a little bit more like a fast-paced racer, like something like F-Zero or Fast RMX. In addition, it's got super fast and dark industrial music that's really, really good. Another game with a fantastic soundtrack. And if you get a chance to pick up Thumper, definitely play it with headphones on. This is a great game to really zone out and get into, and it'll leave your heart thumping. No pun intended? Thumper is 75% off for $4.99. And then Biped is probably the newest game on this list. It released earlier this fall and is a game that is very much going to speak to people who are fans of Captain Toad's Treasure Tracker. It's an isometric puzzle platformer thing about a robot in a deserted post-apocalyptic world, but it's very, sterile looking, and it's got a very chill vibe to it. If you're looking for something to kind of work your way through slowly and relax to, Biped is a great place to start. It's currently 51% off for $7.34. My personal favorite game on this list, unless I already said that for Paco Caravan, I don't remember. Another cheap, great indie game that is the epitome of weird indie things is Donut County, and it's 70% off for $3.89. It's got a story about a badger who destroys the world, and you play as a hole in the ground. And I promise it's wonderful. The music's incredible, the story has some of the best writing I've seen in a game, and even though the game is only a couple of hours long, it is very replayable, but frankly, I think at this price, $3.89, even if you just get the 2 hours of gameplay out of it, you're gonna love it. Give it a shot. take a chance on Donut County. And Wonder Song is a really interesting one. It's got a very colorful, kind of hand-drawn, kids artwork type of style to it, with a really heartfelt RPG story where the combat takes place as rhythm-based minigames, just like a lot of the games we've talked about in this list. Wonder Song is probably the longest of all of the games in this list, so you might consider that the most bang for your buck. And if you want to pick it up, I think there's a demo on this one as well, and you can check it out at 75% off for $4.99. And finally, a game that made my list of the top 20 games of 2020 is What the Golf, which just received a massive free update that almost doubles the size of the game. What the Golf is the golf game for people who hate golf. You basically point the analog stick and press A with the right timing to swing a club, but you do things like hit a car, or steer a ball through kids playing soccer, or hit a golf club across the moon, or, whatever you can think up, it's probably in this game, and it's ridiculous, it's hilarious, and it's 40% off for $11.99. I really think a lot of people should try What the Golf, and it's a great game for all ages. And finally, today we end with my favorite category. Those of you that know Nindie Nation know that we love the Nindie Tri-Fecta. But what is that, you may be asking? Well, these games do share some gameplay elements, but can definitely find a spread across action RPG, twin-stick shooter, simulation, and even card battlers, but they all include procedurally generated levels, roguelike mechanics, and RPG elements! Oh, and there's 13 of them, because there's 13 of them. Juicy Realm is a twin-stick shooter that's all about fruit, and it has some of the coolest sound effects I've ever seen in a game. There's like more squishes and pops than you could ever imagine, and the combat feels wonderful. Besides a game like maybe Monkey Barrels, which wasn't on sale for this list, Juicy Realm is one of my favorite twin-stick shooters to recommend. Every single person I've ever recommended it to has loved it, and you can give it a shot while it's 30% off for $10.49. Dwarf Journey is an incredibly simple take on the side-scrolling action platformer. You just run around in a room and you jump on things and you hack and slash and then you see how far you can make it. When you die, you start over at the most recent floor and you upgrade your character and you do it all again. It's very simple, it's a great game to have in your hands while you're watching TV or listening to a podcast, and it's currently 60% off for just $3.19. If you like that formula, but you want something a little deeper, check out Chasm. It's basically a Metroidvania game, but it's procedurally generated, so everybody's going to get a different experience. Now, that can be a bit hit or miss with some people, but the main parts of the game are the same for everybody. It's just that if you restart the game, you're going to get something quite a bit different. You run and you jump and you solve puzzles and you have real-time RPG combat. It's a wonderful game, and there's a demo for it as well. Chasm is currently $7.99, a 60% discount. And one of my frontrunners for Game of the Year in 2021 is Dreamscaper. Unfortunately, I think this game might not be on the eShop right now because they got into some ESRB trouble or something weird like that, but Dreamscaper is the real deal. It's an isometric action RPG that's all about going into the nightmares of a girl who has just experienced some personal trauma, and it's got some of the best dialogue writing I've ever seen. I've talked about this game ad nauseum on Nindie Nation, so if you watch Nindie Nation, you know that I love it and I recommend it. But if you're coming here for the first time and you're a fan of games like Hades and you want something kinda like that, check out Dreamscaper while it's 20% off for $19.99. It's worth every single penny. Another one of my favorite games of you know what? We're just gonna say all the next games are some of my favorite games because they are. Moonlighter is an incredible idea, where half of the gameplay you are dungeon crawling in a very traditional Zelda-like fashion, and the other half of the game you are running a shop, putting up wares that you found while you're crawling through the dungeons. If that second part doesn't sound very fun to you, I promise you that it's very well streamlined and still very, very fun. And a quick tip for those of you who may not like the shopkeeping part, just go online and search for Moonlighter Perfect Price Guide and use that to set prices in your shop and you'll be golden. Either way, Moonlighter is an incredible action RPG that does all the things I just said, and this version includes a ton of added DLC and is currently 76% off for $6.95. And then my favorite game of 2019, the Nindie Nation Game of the Year for 2019, is Children of Morta, which is currently $8.57, a 61% discount. That is a stupid good deal on one of my favorite games on the Switch. Basically, it's like Diablo. It mostly controls with twin sticks. Sometimes you're using melee, sometimes you're using short-ranged attacks, sometimes you're using spells or bows and arrows, that kind of stuff. You play as a family who is trying to progress up a mountain to solve this nasty evil that's dwelling within. And more often than not, you will fail along your journey, go back to the house, level up, and wash, rinse, repeat. But what Children of Morta does differently that makes it so special is the way the family plays into the game itself. Not only is it very focused on the narrative of the game, but you also have to swap out party members so that they don't get too exhausted. And when you do that, it forces you to go through playing the different gameplay types, whether it's melee or ranged, etc., etc. And that creates a game with a ton of variety that just hits all the right buttons. Great music, great story, great voice acting, great gameplay, all of it is top tier. And at $8.57, that deal is too good to pass up. Ruiner is another twin-stick shooter, this one much more traditional. The only difference here is that you have stages, but you also have a hub world to explore as well. I think this is a great cyberpunk-focused game for those of you who were let down by that other cyberpunk game, you know the one I'm talking about, the one that takes place in 2077, that one. Ruiner is very much that type of aesthetic, very mature, very dark and gritty and all that kind of stuff, but it's a lot better because the gameplay is wonderful. It's also very focused on driving combos and swapping in and out different weapons, so you're always getting different tastes of gameplay as you play along. If Ruiner looks like the right game for you, it's 75% off its lowest price ever for $4.99. And then a Nindie Nation community favorite, Crown Trick, is currently on sale for 40% off for $11.99 and is loved across our community. It's a deck-building card game that plays much more like a slightly real-time but grid-based combat. It's kind of hard to explain, but take a look at some videos and I think you'll get the general gist of how this game plays. Again, this is one of its first times to be discounted this low, so if this looks like it's up your alley, trust me, it's gonna deliver, especially while it's 40% off for $11.99. One of the most beloved indies, I know I've said that a lot today, but it's true, Enter the Gungeon is beloved by many. It's a very traditional twin-stick shooter that's focused on bullet hell mechanics while dodging and rolling and all that kind of stuff, with a gameplay loop that isn't really going to help you build out your characters as much as you're going to be unlocking new classes and new ways to play the same game. Enter the Gungeon is half off, as are most games by Devolver Digital, and is currently $7.49. Hey, have you played Hades yet? If you haven't played Hades yet, it's 30% off for $17.49. It was like every outlet's game of the year last year. I'll let you go look somewhere else if you want to read and learn more about it, but if you haven't played it yet, pick it up. And if you're like, I don't like roguelikes, just shut up and do it, because it's really good. Very similar to Enter the Gungeon or Ruiner, Tesla Force is a very similar style twin-stick shooter that is decidedly more lower budget, but for some reason I got really hooked on it earlier this year. It is one of the more expensive games among this list, being 40% off for $10.19, but if you play a lot of games in this genre and you're looking for something new, check out Tesla Force. One of the original roguelikes that made its way to consoles was Rogue Legacy, which released nearly a decade ago. It's a side-scrolling platformer with randomized levels that change every time you play the game, and a really unique system where your character is picked from a lineage of family members. Don't think that puts you into a corner though, because every time you start a new run, you get to pick from 3 different randomly generated characters. And that can include melee or ranged combat or magic, or sometimes your characters just can't fight at all and you try to see how far you can go. It's really quirky, it's got a lot of silly ideas and funny humor to it, but underneath all of that, it's a really great game. If you haven't played Rogue Legacy, I happen to think it plays best on the Switch, and you can try it out while it's 70% off for $4.49. And finally, the last game on today's list is a lot of the things that we just discussed rolled into one game. And that is Black Future 88, which is 60% off for $7.99. So it's got your 80s aesthetic, your cyberpunk aesthetic. It's very mature. It's got industrial music, lots of neon. It's a side-scrolling run-and-gun game, so that's a bit different, where you're running around big open worlds, jumping up and down platforms. It's got a lot of verticality to it, but it also has a lot of twin-stick shooter elements. So in that way, it's kind of like Exit the Gungeon in a sense, but with a lot more adventure elements to it as well. Basically, the premise is that you have 18 minutes to save the world, but you can do lots of things within that time to extend it. So don't get scared off by the notion of an 18-minute timer. It's actually a really cool game that was thought up by a solo developer who happened to be a musician and wanted a game to fit his music, couldn't find a developer to make the game, so he just made the damn thing himself, and it's pretty damn good. Check it out. I think Tesla Force and Black Future 88 are both great fits for the indie fan who plays a lot of these games but haven't played those yet. Check out Black Future 88 while it's 60% off for $7.99. Oh man, that's a lot of games. 86 games. Are you planning to pick up any of these games? Let me know down in the comments. Also, don't forget to check the description because all of these games are listed there, and you know what? Nobody ever sticks around to the end of the video anyways, but hey, if you like the video, please give us a thumbs up, and if you want to see a lot more Nindie goodness, come back every single week on Tuesday when we cover all of the week's new indie releases hitting the Nintendo Switch. If you like deals, we also talk about those over on our Discord channel and on Twitter at Nindie Nation. And until next time, I'm Jeff. I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving break. I hope you're safe, you're happy, you're healthy, and that this list helped you find some new games to play. Thanks so much for watching. And remember, no matter what type of game you're looking for, Nindie Nation will be right here to help you find just the thing to keep your Joy-Cons synced.